is Tuesday and the start of another week where I don't really have any plans. It's a really weird feeling for me to not have a bunch of random things and appointments and projects to be working on. So I'm going to take advantage of all of this extra time. Ooh, it's so humid out. My hair is like sticking to my forehead. Let me hold on a second. Okay, that's better. That was bothering me. So I'm going to take advantage of today and do a bunch of mending that I was going to have someone else do, but I figure I have time. I might as well just do it myself and get those little projects done. I don't know what the week is going to hold. I don't know what exciting things are going to happen or not exciting things. We'll see. I know next week we have a bunch of buying appointments. So this week I'm just going to try to take it easy, lay low, and get as many things done today as I can. So let's get on to mending this beautiful dress. This is one of the dresses that I got from a buying appointment a couple of weeks ago. It's absolutely stunning, but it does have some holes in the skirt that I could sell it as is. The holes don't come up on the bust or in the upper hip range or anything like that. They're at the bottom of the skirt and there's a scattering of little moth holes, and I could leave it and sell it as is, but I just don't like doing that. I like to try to mend everything I can. So I am going to try to get all of these holes patched up. I have this other cobalt blue one. Here, let me turn it around. Definitely needs to be rolled off, but it has this hole on the front here, and this I'm just gonna have to disguise as best I can. But this one I'm not in as big of a hurry for because it's super thick. I believe, ooh, K Windsor. It feels like a wool blend, so it's a little bit heavier, so I'm not in a hurry to get this one done because it's still really hot outside. But definitely that really cool scarf print boho dress is on the docket for today, and I'm hoping I can get that completely mended. I don't think on last week's episode I showed these at all, but I got in last week these amazing rose gold metallic Jeffrey Campbell Lita platform shoes. Now, I originally got these for the pool house shoot, but the gal I bought them from had just moved and she thought she donated them or accidentally threw them. Never got them. A couple of weeks after the shoot, she had emailed me saying that she found them and I could have them if I wanted, or buy them if I wanted. And I did. So I got those in last week, and I'll show you the outfit that I was planning on putting together with these. I was originally gonna have these Litas on the beautiful Steph wearing this outfit, and there's another shot of her sitting in a car, and I was gonna have her wear these shoes prominently, but it didn't come to pass. So I guess that means that these shoes are just gonna have another photo shoot dedicated to them. All right, so it's midway through the morning and I'm working my way through all of these little holes. I'm trying to find examples of them. If you can maybe see it there, you see little remnants. They're not very big, but they're enough to where if you shine some light on it, you can see right through. And I'm just trying to patch them up to where they're not going to rip or tear any further. It's Wednesday morning. I was in a little bit of a rush today and yesterday, so I didn't film very much. Just been trying to get a lot of these little projects done. And today, since it's kind of a rainy, gloomy day, I am gonna start getting a lot of these jewelry lots that I've been getting and putting them in larger listings on eBay. Now, I could easily keep a lot of these and just eventually to start to sell them, but I just don't like having a bunch of things sitting in back. I know in the past I've sold jewelry lots to people who have other vintage stores who like reselling or even use these to make their own jewelry, pieces of art. I just want them to get used, and I don't want them just sitting in my back room collecting dust.
So I'm gonna go through, see what I want to piece and put together, and start getting these pumped out today. So this is the first lot I am putting up, and it's all pins and brooches. And as you can see, they're really nice pieces. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with them. I mean, some, like a couple, are a little tarnished. These do have a couple missing pieces. But overall, they're good, sturdy brooches, and I know someone will be able to do something with them. I'm just not that person. But I do have to admit, this little puppy one is pretty cute. Okay, so now I am trying to edit a gift guide video that I'll be posting, I'm not sure when, maybe in the next couple of weeks. But I thought it'd be fun this year to do just a funny little gift video for the shop to show some of the things that we have in. And the reason why I decided to do this is I was going through the whole playlist of my YouTube channel. And again, I know I've talked about this before, but I started this during the shutdown just to connect with my customers. I was still a fairly new business, and I just needed something to do. So we kept filming these little skit type videos, and one of them was a tour with my partner Charles. And it was fun going back to that video because this was 4+ years ago. And I still don't have any camera skills or editing skills, but I used an old camera of my sister's to film that wasn't a film camera. It was really janky, the sound was off, but it was funny and it was cute, and it was a nice retrospective into what the shop looked like when we first opened in this spot, which was sparse. So it was really fun, and I thought, why not do another one? They're not going to be long, they're going to be super short, and just show some of our favorite things in the shop. Now, I don't like videos like these to seem really salesy, but I just really like doing them. I like filming things with Charles, and it's nice. Editing videos has become kind of like crossword puzzles to me. It's a nice little brain workout, even if the videos don't turn out that great. I still really like doing it. So I am going to just play around with this. I haven't given myself a timeline. I know the holidays this year, shopping trends, I don't know. There are no patterns anymore, so I'm just gonna get it out when I get it out, and I just hope people like it and think it's cute, funny, all of the above. So I'm gonna keep pushing on that. Now, I had a little bit of just a motivation kick, and I ended up photographing, pricing, and listing all of these amazing jewelry pieces I got in, was it last week already? Ooh, there's so much sparkle, my camera does not want to focus on that. So these beauties are now up on my website. I absolutely love this penguin and this little cat and these amazing brooches. Let's see if I zoom in. There we go. So many sparkles, I love it. And these are very Versace inspired. They're amazing. Again, I have to let them go. So they are now up and listed. Now this is a super random story, but I deleted my shop's TikTok account a while ago. It's just too much of a mind scroll. But now I've gotten into looking at all of the shorts on YouTube, which is equally as dangerous. Now, I love the Graham Norton show, which is a talk show, late night show over in the UK. And this clip came up of Benedict Cumberbatch talking about how he couldn't pronounce the word penguin in a documentary he did, and he kept calling it penwing. And I've been watching that clip over and over and over again, and I don't know why I get so much enjoyment out of it, but all I know is every time I see a penguin, I always think of that clip, and I want to call it a penguin.
Good morning. It is Thursday morning. And I got into the shop a little bit early because I am waiting on a shipment and actually just see UPS drive by right now. I try to get in early to meet them here so they don't leave my box somewhere else. But I had my amazing friend Wendy, who I have to give a shout out to her embroidery business, Authentic Embroidery. She does really cool embroidery pieces, anatomical hearts. They're amazing. I'll link it down below. But she came in yesterday and gifted me two amazing antique mannequins that I already have ideas for, and I'm going to be using them in an upcoming window display. They're gorgeous. I didn't realize they were as old as they were, but once you see them, you'll definitely know. I'm crazy excited for it, and I'm really excited to show you. So let's take a look at these two killer mannequins that I now get to call my own. So here are these two beauties. Now, as you can tell by the shape of the women's mannequin, it's definitely earlier turn of the century. You kind of see that S curve in the body where they'd be wearing the corset and what we kind of think of as a girdle. But what I really love is it still has its label on it. Now, again, I haven't had enough time to properly research this, but when I did just a quick search online, I found one that had sold that said it was from around the 1900s. Now, I haven't adjusted the pedestals, but you can see at the bottom, you have the cage. And what I love that was pointed out is that the top is copper. How amazing is that? It's absolutely beautiful. On the men's one, there is a lot of color fading, which luckily this fabric can be completely replaced. But I love that the interior is wood. I think it's wood. But how gorgeous is that? I might think about getting replacement fabric for the outside of this. But until I do, I thought this men's one could be kind of an interesting one to put up in the front window because it looks a little creepy. But the women's one for sure is just absolutely amazing. And I do have pieces that are a little bit earlier. Obviously, they're not going to be on display because of the fragility of the clothing, but I just think even as a display by itself, this piece is absolutely amazing. Yesterday, no, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday. I had an interesting conversation with one of my regulars who's been going through his own style journey. And we were talking about minimalism and just the trend of quiet luxury and just a lot of style trends that we've been seeing. Now, I'm not an expert on minimalism or quiet luxury, obviously, but I remembered I had this book that came out not that long ago about Carolyn Bessette Kennedy and her very notable, understated style. So I thought, well, I'll bring it back from home and I'll have it here just to show people what I'm talking about when her form of minimalism is the only one that I respond to, and I'll tell you why. Now, I find it shocking, but if you don't know who Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was, then you can probably guess by her last name, she was a Kennedy by marriage, married to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis' son, JFK Jr. Tragic story behind them. They both died in a plane crash. Really horrible story, but I want to celebrate her style. Now, very simple, very understated, She worked for Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, so definitely very all-American designers. And what I love about her style is that it was her. Now, this simple style doesn't work for everyone. It really is, it comes alive on the person. And this minimal kind of style, very simplistic, minimalist, kind of came to life, and I think why it's so recognizable is because of her as an individual. I love how she wasn't afraid to use print when it was necessary to her style, but it just goes to show it really isn't all clothing making the person, it's the person wearing it. Fashion is fashion, clothing's clothing, but style is unique to the wearer. I mean, a lot of her clothing, it'll be very timeless. Reminds me of almost Audrey Hepburn, very crisp, clean, ageless. Like, this is an outfit that you'll see in every decade, no matter what the trend is. Again, if you just look at it, pearls and a really clean little black dress. And let's throw in a pattern. It says in the description that this dress was by Karl Lagerfeld for Chanel's 1996 Cruise collection. Absolutely love it. And I especially love dresses that have the zip going all the way down to the front. How gorgeous is that? And then I have to end it with my favorite, which was her wedding dress. I love a good slip dress, and I mean, can you imagine how gorgeous? And this kind of reminds me of the dress that Meghan Markle wore to her wedding reception after marrying Prince Harry. Very clean, but the beautiful, beautiful draping is what adds so much interest to it. All right, it is Friday morning. And as usual, I get into the shop a little bit early, but I felt like reminiscing today. And this 1980s beaded skirt and blazer set was actually a wedding ensemble. Now, I might have already talked about this in a previous video, I can't quite remember, but this particular set holds a very special place in my heart because of the amazing couple that I met who owned this piece. This is the first time I've taken it out of the plastic since I got it a couple of years ago. Now, again, if I've told this story before, I apologize for being a broken record, but I was just thinking about it on my way to work this morning. And this wedding dress belonged and was worn by an amazing woman named Ruby. And I received this set from her husband, who I met a couple of years ago. And he came in and he was helping her sell a lot of her wardrobe off. Now, she had started getting deeper into the depths of dementia, and he wanted to find a home for these pieces and get all the memories attached to them before she lost those memories forever. Now, as he explained it to me, they met later in life, and her life started here in Fargo. She was a salon owner. I believe it was from the 50s to about, was it the late 70s or 80s? Very successful salon owner. She, I believe, had her salon somewhere around me, in a couple of blocks away even, not positive. But she had closed her salon and moved to Los Angeles and became a hair and beauty educator, and that's where she met her husband and they got married. Now, while she was there, she was very successful with what she did, and she traveled all over the world teaching classes, techniques. And as her husband relayed it to me, she found herself hiking in the Himalayas, as one does, and had met people from the court of the Maharaja of India, and they invited her to come to their, I don't know if it's a palace, but their very expansive estate to do
their hair and makeup. And she was in one of the main rooms, and he said that she kept commenting on this big, beautiful oil painting of one Rita Hayworth hanging up behind her the entire time. Now, Rita Hayworth was married to Prince Ali Khan, so there's a lot of history there, and I just thought how amazing it was. That's one of the namesakes of my shop, Carmine and Hayworth. And this was a woman that got as close to Rita Hayworth as I'll ever get. Now, this was her wedding ensemble, and she was very fashion forward. I still have some more of her pieces, a lot of really heavily embellished pieces. Actually, if I zoom in, those two beaded gowns were pieces of hers that I believe she wore to some awards galas. But the reason I love this set is when he was telling me about it before he brought it in, he just said how beautiful she looked, and it's a mini skirt underneath, and how she showed off her amazing legs, and he said she had great boobs. So apparently she was full cleavage out. Now, sadly enough, I haven't done a lot of research on this label. This has been kind of a piece that it's been bittersweet for me, because I did end up meeting Ruby, and I went to their car because she wasn't able to walk very well. She still had her dyed red hair all up in a beautiful updo, her makeup done, dressed to the nines, and she just was so gracious and amazing. And her husband came in several times bringing in pieces, and I'll always remember it because we sat on the couch that I used to have in the front of my shop, and we would just sit there for a couple of hours while he talked about all of their memories together and some of the struggles that they were going through. And he said he was going to bring in a photo of her wearing this. He showed it to me, and he said he was going to bring it in, but they were currently kind of going back and forth with his, I think it was his kids, or was it her kids, because they had a blended family. And when they moved back here and her health started to decline, the kids wanted them to move back to California, and obviously they really didn't want to, and he knew, and he tried to tell them that taking her away from here, her home, would deteriorate her health even more. And the kids gave them an ultimatum that if you don't move back to California, we're not going to help you anymore. We're cutting ties. And they felt the pressure. And I know he and Ruby both decided they wanted these pieces to find a home because they were very afraid that things were going to be thrown and sold off to people that they didn't think would appreciate them. Now, the last time I talked to him, he came in. He had health problems too, mobility issues. And he said he would bring in the photo of her wearing it to give me a copy, and I never saw him again. And it still makes me tear up to this day because I don't know if they ended up going back to California. I haven't heard anything from them in a couple of years, and it makes me sad. And that's what this piece reminds me of, is the real person behind it, and an amazing couple who was so gracious enough to trust me with a lot of these pieces. So I don't know, I was just thinking about that this morning and how much that interaction had meant to me. And when people ask me why I do what I do, this is one of the top stories that I have to relay. And just look at how beautiful this beading is, and all the iridescent sequins, the sheer organza sleeves. It's absolutely stunning. And you might have seen in some previous videos these two pairs of heels, all silk heels, that I have on display, and those were also rubies. I did keep a lot of pieces from her, including this insane carved resin Egyptian scarab themed brooch belt. And you've seen the Victorian clasp hands one probably in some different photo shoots. And this, I know one of the original tags fell off of it, and I have it back here somewhere, But I believe it was from a brand called Charmant of Beverly Hills, and they specialized in these really cool ornate resin belts. And she had a ton of these, a ton of floral ones. These are ones I kept. The floral ones have long since sold. They came in lilac and teal, turquoise, black. Oh god, they were so beautiful. I would have kept them all if I could have. And I'll say it time and time again, the stories behind a lot of these pieces, whether it be the person or the history of the brand, if I could just research these pieces all day, that would be a dream. I love the history behind it. I get along with these clothes better than I do most people, to be quite honest. And the people that I've met while having my shop, I know I always come off sounding so corny, but those are the memories that when I have some pretty hard days, and this past year has been rough mentally. The world has changed so much since I started my shop in 2018. People's attitudes have changed, how we treat each other has changed, and it gets very taxing and wearing, especially if you work in the service industry and you interact with the public all day. But when I remember the people behind these pieces and the good memories they've passed on to me, it starts making it all worth it. I do think maybe one of the videos I'll do in the future is kind of like a show and tell, just like I've been doing with my vintage lingerie collection. Now, as you all probably know by now, I've been working hard to photograph and catalog all of the pieces that are in the archive, but it's a never ending project. And I don't know if I'll ever be close to being towards completion. I don't think that's even possible. But there are just so many pieces in here that I just like coming back here and pulling one out and just remembering where I got it, when I got it, and why I loved it. This stunning 1950s one, oh, it's one of my favorites. It's made of wool and it has these amazing, intricate jet black little pom-poms going around the waist. And the neck has a very slight cowl to it. But if you look at the back, it has to be one of my favorite parts. Now it has this beautiful draped back, and if you lift that up, it has this amazing bow and darting going along the back. You have this tiny little kick pleat. But one of the things I really love, and I have a couple of dresses like this, and I know it's something very simple, but you don't see it. I don't think I've ever seen it on modern clothing, because modern clothing doesn't really, we don't have stuff like this anymore. But to keep the shape and the weight of this straight back, there's this little pocket right here that feels like washers or could be a magnet. It's a little bit heavier in the back to weight it down and keep its shape. I absolutely love this dress, and when I first opened in my little studio space down in the basement of this building, my amazing friend Kelsey was so wonderful, and we did our first creative shoot down there, and one of the models wore this dress. I'll insert the photos here, and oh my god, they're stunning. I have them framed here somewhere. I had to pack them up after a couple of moves, but oh, it's one of my favorite dresses. I can't even describe how stunning it is. And I couldn't find a maker's label on it, so I believe that this was maybe custom made. I don't believe it was handmade. Well, you know what I mean. It wasn't made by the original owner. But I absolutely love this and the photos behind it. But these are just some of the memories that I have to come back here and keep reminding myself for when things get tough. And I start to go on this kind of bummer spiral. That this is why I do what I do. Now, another thing I like to do early in the mornings is to just play some of my favorite music and just get inspired. Now today I am listening to the band The Dead Weather, of course, with the prolific Jack White, Alison Mosshart. Now, I've been listening to their first album, Whorehound, on repeat, and I'm angry because I had this album, and there's a period of time where I hung around with people that kept stealing all of my stuff. I have had so many albums taken that I miss so badly. Clothing. I had this amazing baseball tee that I got for my birthday, I think in junior high or high school, of the Donnas. The Donnas is one of my all-time favorite bands. And it was my favorite t-shirt, and that got stolen. This album got stolen. I had an album from the band Savette I had seen live here in Fargo when they opened for the Dropkick Murphys. Ugh, it's painful. But I want to tell you a little bit of a story about the Dead Weather and why I've become so, well, not why I've become currently so obsessed, but why I love this band so much and were very pivotal for me in my adolescence into young adulthood. Now, back when I was in college, I think it was my sophomore year of college, I found out that Jack White's new band, The Dead Weather, was going to be playing at First Avenue in Minneapolis. And I felt like this was my redemption because years prior, when the White Stripes were still touring, they were slated to come to Fargo. And I had a big group of friends that were going. I bought all the tickets, so freaking excited. But then they canceled because Meg White had to step back and the mental toll it was taking. And as an adult, I totally get that. But it was heartbreaking. I was so close to seeing one of my favorite bands, and it didn't come to fruition. So they were playing in the cities. I was gonna stop at nothing to go. So I got two of my friends to road trip with me to the cities to go see them. We got there, we got in line early. An amazing concert. I would have gotten front row, but there was this bald man with a massive peppermint tattoo on the back of his neck who kept shoving a lot of us so he could get to the front. And yeah, he had a large peppermint tattoo on his neck. That's all I need to say. But it was such an amazing concert. And I think, who was the opening act? I think it was the Screaming Females. And they ended up coming to Fargo a couple years after that. And I got to see them here and chat with them. And it was a great memory. But anywho, I'll insert some photos. I ended up kind of ditching my friends a little bit because I wanted to get up to the front. And they weren't as big of fans as I was. So they were okay just hanging back while I did my thing. Now, after the show, I met this guy there who had met a lot of people in the band and was kind of like, he was in a band and knew where they were going to come out. So we ended up going and waiting at the exit door next to their tour bus. And I thought for sure, this is my chance. I'm going to meet Jack White. My life will be complete. I can die happy. And so I was standing there. I had this big shit-eating grin on my face. I was so excited. And he was the first to come out. And I tell you, it was the most pathetic thing. Looking back on it, I think I was like 19 at the time, 19, 20, I don't remember. And he just walked right past us briskly, didn't even look at us. And I had my mouth hanging open the whole time and then realized, oh, he's not gonna stop and talk to us. So that was heartbreaking. And the guy I'd met there tried to lift our spirits because he said he was notoriously hard to get to stop and sign autographs or even just take a photo or meet anybody. So he stood out in front of the tour bus yelling quotes from Coffee and Cigarettes, and I'll remember it forever. He kept yelling, "Tell us about your Tesla coil, Jack," and just almost taunting. And I thought it was funny because I was so crushed. But luckily, Alison Mosshart, who is also the front woman for the Kills, came out, and I'm not a big autograph person, not even really a photograph person. And at this time, we just had like our little cell phones. We didn't have anything fancy. But she was so gracious to stand out there and talk to us. And I actually got my picture taken with her. And that was amazing. I mean, she ended up coming out of that being my favorite. She was so freaking nice. And it just meant so much to me. Now, flash forward years and years and years. I don't know why this is becoming a Jack White story time. But oh gosh, what year was it? I can't. It was pre-pandemic. And Jack White was doing a mini tour of all the states that he hadn't played a show in yet. And North Dakota was one of them. And they announced that these were going to be very exclusive, small concerts, and it was just going to be like $2 to get in to play. So me and one of my friends stalked the website because they were going to announce it, I believe, the day of the show. And we waited. I'd fallen asleep and I got a call from my friend at, I think it was like 6 in the morning. And she said, Fargo is today. The show's tonight. Get dressed, get ready, we have to get in line. So I hurried up, slapped on some clothes, and we ended up going downtown. They played at the historic Fargo Theater. And at that time, there was a big parking lot behind the Fargo Theater that a lot of us were waiting, and it was a line literally going around the block. I believe it was cut off at like, oh gosh, don't quote me, 500 people, 500 or 600 people. And at that time in line, we knew that we were probably like 110 because we got there early and we pretty much camped out. Kind of a bummer now because that parking lot has been turned into kind of a bougie development, but that's a whole other story. So we waited and waited and waited. And what we didn't know is that people were letting other people cut in the front of the line, which they had people there that were trying to stop it. But of course, people were going to get through. And we were only number like 110. We were super ahead. We knew that there was a possibility that we weren't going to make it. So as the doors opened and you were able to go in and get your tickets, people were giving counts up to the last moment. And as we got closer to the Fargo Theater, people were doing head counts, and slowly we were creeping towards like 400 and something. We were getting towards the end, and I thought, we did not just sit here for like 4 or 5 hours in the sun, in a parking lot, on the ground for nothing. But we ended up making it. We just made the cutoff, got to go into the show. It was an amazing show, but we weren't allowed to take photos or videos, which we respected. But it was when that streaming platform from Jay-Z, I believe it was Tidal, launched. And while we couldn't take photos or videos, you had this big like video type rig on a wire system flying through, videotaping the whole thing to be streamed on Tidal. It was very distracting, and almost more distracting than if someone had had their camera out, to be honest, because a lot of the times this thing, it was as big as like a projector, was blocking our view because we were up, of course, in the nosebleeds, which there's really no bad seat in the Fargo Theater. So anywho, I did get to see Jack White eventually. But after the show, my friend asked, do you want to go to the back and see if we can get him to maybe sign an autograph, take a picture? And I said, no. Last time I waited, I was heartbroken. He just skipped right by us, didn't acknowledge us. I'm not even going to get my hopes up. So we ended up just going home. I found out later that, of course, this was the show that he actually stayed afterwards to talk to people, sign autographs, gave people baseball cards, and apparently was very lovely and warm to a lot of the fans. And I thought to myself, yep, that sounds about right. The one time I decided not to. So maybe there'll be another time. I don't know. But it was an amazing concert. I'm so happy I got to go. But again, this is a day of memories, and why not? Why not? Because these photos are going to get lost to time. So why not talk about it now? and it just makes me feel good. And it's memories that I haven't thought about in a while. And what better day than a Friday to bring all of them up and just remember how interesting life can be.